part of the reason I think I feel this pain so much is because there's a conflict between my superego and my ego. There's a major conflict between what I know, what I can imagine is possible for my life, and the reality that I'm faced with trying to get those things done. And the reason I call my studio on Earth Studio 45 is because that is sort of the bridge that our society has been facing for a very long time, and we're not out of there enough. We can't just say it doesn't exist and go into the cyber world. That's what frustrates me a lot about getting into VR, which I've been trying to do for a decade, since 2014, and now it's 2024. My primary goal has to just get VR hardware and sit down somewhere and get into VR and make my VR thing. That's a Studio 56 endeavor. It has no real people in it. It's all digital information. It's a VR cinema machinima project. And it's like I can't even talk about it because I don't have the hardware. And there's these videos that are like, I spent a week in VR. That doesn't acknowledge the fact that I didn't have to go out and be distracted all week doing something else to pay my rent for a week. I have had a comfortable enough life that I can sit inside of a computer. And I didn't have to see any homeless people. I didn't have to walk by any homeless people. And I spent a whole week in VR. And all I've ever been able to do is get into Gear VR, get some things into Gear VR, and look at still frames. Basically, it's just the physical reality part is missing. Um, that's why we have to talk about 45. We are an organism. I'm a man, and I'm under 4,000 miles of gravity. That is the reality. Running around for these tickets. Um, we we haven't. Doesn't seem like if you just even read the news, the regular, not bashing it. I'm saying if you just look at it, it seems like you can draw the conclusion from what's going on in the world. It seems like we haven't dealt with the implications of what happened just so recently that ended in 1945. Studio 45. We had these big two explosive world wars, and society changed forever. Civilization changed forever. But it looks like we're going back to doing the same thing ourselves. Uh-uh. maybe there's something to revisit from that era. Maybe there's still more lessons to learn. In Japan's society, we're going through now in America, we're going through what seems like what they had gone through in Japan during the Heian period. Or at least, I don't know, there's some extent of it left. It was very heavy during 2012 and the big data collection time, the time where all the big data was being collected for the first time. Oh, there's something in there that we got to open up and explore because now the United States is broken up into different times because where you are is when you are. And so you can't give the Northeast, which is the 1800s, it's still the 1800s, and it will be for another 200 years. It physically is the mindset that controls all of Neo England, is one of the Calvinists who had just printed their own Bible and crossed the Atlantic Ocean. You can't give them bird scooters. You can't rule them. You can't try to impose the future that Silicon Valley owns on the past, which is right here. Physically here. The bridge from 4 to 5 is the one that we were dealing with in the 20th century. And the ones which is not. It seems like I have to come down and do work in 45 before the work in 5-6 can be done. Because 5-6 is all telepresence. It's just, it's electric. 45 is dealing with intuition coming down into the world of society. The difference can be seen clearly in Zen art versus art that's in museums. The Zen aesthetic practices of art present you with what is here now. With all its flaws, it is now, and it's showing you that this is now. But the art that society produces is society itself. It is just the rehashed symbols of society itself. It doesn't have a meta level to go beyond itself. So there has been this long running thing in Asia between Confucianism, which deals with society and how to govern society, and there is an intuitive part to it, which is the I Ching. But that comes in conflict with the individual. With Zen, and then you have historical figures who have become gods, who had to bridge Zen and Confucianism, and they have this whole history of it. Right now, since we don't deal with our past and we buy Silicon Valley's idea of the future wholesale, we're dealing with a 45 problem here in America in the present. And there's these corporations running around with all this insane power, but they lost the script. They lost the plot on what a corporation actually is as it relates to the human organism. It we have genes that decide what makes up a corporation, actually, and that's it involves a family, and our families, at least in my family, I've been withheld over 300 grand of real estate because of petty dividing social issues that make me a fairy tart and them a good working Joe. The families are broken up. It's somebody's plot to make the family incohesive. But it's families that make up corporations. It's in our DNA. Good, strong family joins up with other families to incorporate. Now we're going to get back to this, and I don't want to make it an advertisement um, for my thing and my thing I got going on in the middle of the night. But it is a foundational problem that I want to talk about and address. And we're going to go on a field trip here to bring this more into the context of earth elements.